All right, we're back. Football season has mercifully come to an end in the regular season. All we have left is a bowl game. I'm thinking me and Austin might have to go and roll and suit up to play because it's portal season. So we'll see what happens. Since we last spoke, we had a Missouri loss, 6-6 finish, and the portal is about to open. So we have guys making announcements of their future. We have new guys, high school guys, and community college guys in the early signing day has happened. So we'll get into a little bit of all of that and see where we can go from there. Sit tight. We'll be right back and we'll get into it.
Yeah, next week's going to suck for him. But other than that, he'll do it.
What is happening? Welcome into the Gravity Design Lab studio. Let's get into the show. All right, we're back. This episode is brought to you by Gravity Design Labs. Any website or graphic design needs you may have, give us a shout and give us a shot at gravitydesignlabs.com. All right, well, we're here with Austin. It's your favorite time of the year. It's Christmas season / off season / portal season / recruiting season. It's your time to shine, my man. That's it. That's where we're at. So first, before we get into that, we played Missouri. It was snowy. It was a game that we let victory slip away once again. It is what it is. We'll just skip right over that game and just look at the whole season as a whole. What's your grade on the season that we just had in football?
The way I'd like to answer this question is if you told me that we were 6-6 when the year started, I think most people would have been pretty happy with the way the way that record is and the way things went out. But I think looking back, by the time you got to the end of the year, 6-6 to me is pretty disappointing. If I had to put a letter grade on it, I mean C, because could it have been worse? Like, sure, but it could have been way better. I mean, like you said, that Missouri game there at the end, we had the lead 4 minutes to go, and they drove down the field, and it was a good play by the defender, but we dropped a touchdown to tie it and go into overtime, but it shouldn't even been that close to begin with. And you look back at some of the other games, I thought it was a telling stat. We won 6 games. 5 of those games, the people that we beat did not have a 500 record. So, UAPB, bad team. UAB, bad team. Auburn, Mississippi State, bottom of the SEC. And then, the one team that I thought that was okay that we beat, obviously, was Tennessee. They're a good team. They're in the playoffs. That was kind of the one anomaly there. But, you let some games slip, like the Oklahoma State game. We should have got that one. Should have caught Missouri. Could have beat A&M. Could have been a lot better year. So 6-6, we're going bowling. That was the goal, I guess. Like Sam said, that's not our only goal, but it is an accomplishment. I agree, but I think the year could have went a lot better. And I think a lot of people feel that. So,
yeah, that's kind of where I was at too. Like almost exactly. Like preseason, I said 6-6, 7-5 if it goes like if we have some things go right. But so give it a B. Preseason expectations. In this season, give me a D for disappointment, just like you said, because there are so many games. Oklahoma State, we should have beat. It turned out they were terrible for whatever reason. Their record was terrible. And then there were several games that we could have won, that we could have been in. Disappointing with the way that Ole Miss game went. Like, you get blown out like that. That shouldn't happen. But you average those together, it's a C, and I think that's fair. Preseason expectations, I don't think anybody's thrilled that we went 6-6, or I don't think anybody was like, "Oh yeah, I hope we go 6-6." But the fact that we went 6-6 and are going to a bowl was kind of the expectation. So like, should be okay. But seeing that disappointment, that is what it is. But I think we're in agreement. C's all around. Well, as we sit here, there's some news that is popping up. So let's shift gears a little bit. I think we're in agreement on that 6-6 being a C. But let's talk about a little portal news. What do you got on the portal news?
Yeah, so while we're sitting here recording, of course, this will be a little old by the time this gets up and everything. But Braxton just hit the portal. I got a sheet in front of me that kind of had everybody that's leaving and going and everything, and yeah, that's a tough one to swallow. Braxton leaving the portal. I mean, he would have been our best defensive back this year, and he didn't hardly play. But he was a guy that you thought you didn't know if he was going to go, you didn't know if he would stay, and that's a tough one to swallow. He's good. He's a good one.
Yeah, and there's a few in there that are good ones that are kind of tough to swallow. I mean, that's
Yeah, yeah, they're starting to pile up. I mean, if you look at them all individually, it's tough, but you look at them all together, it's really tough. So, yeah, I mean, we'll just kind of dive into it. I mean, there's a few more guys that have left that I have left off here, but these are guys that either did special teams or I'm not too concerned about. But these are the people I'm going to name off are either guys you're going to count on for next year or starters this year. So far that have entered the portal, this is Friday night that we're talking right now. So Saturday by the time you're hearing this. So we've lost Jalen Braxton, Josh Braun, Luke Haas, Nico. You know who I'm talking about. Starting defensive end. I always have a hard time pronouncing his last name. Patrick Kudus, Isaiah Satanga, Carson Dean, Malachi Singleton. I threw Carson Dean in there just because I wanted to talk about the linebacker core, and I feel good about him. But I mean, he is a guy that he might could have played next year some, but especially on a rotational basis. But other than him, I mean, every single one of those guys just listed off real quick. Those are tough. You look at Braun's a 2-year starter for us, and he was our only All SEC performer last year. And while I think he probably played a little better year before last, I mean, I still think he was solid. And I mean, you don't want to lose on a line that's already tough. If you're losing starters, I mean, that's tough. Haas, I thought he underperformed this year. I don't know how much of that goes on him or how much of that goes on Talon or how much of it goes on Bobby. But I mean, he's not a guy you want to lose. Is he irreplaceable? I don't think so. But I mean, he's our top recruit from a few years ago, and not somebody you want to lose. And then you start going down the list, starting guard, starting defensive end, your starting slot receiver, your backup quarterback, your best defensive back. That's piling up. That's tough losses.
a lot to overcome for sure. And there's I mean, it's every year it's going to be like this now with the portal and NIL and all this stuff. I mean, it's going to be guys leaving for this reason or that reason. There's some guys that leave that you're like, okay, good for you, because you're in a bad situation where you're not going to get to play as much, or you're not going to have the chance to do what you really could do. Like, I think of like Singleton in that scenario. He's a great backup. I'm glad we had him because we wouldn't have beat Tennessee without him, I don't think. But and he can go somewhere and really be the guy because we have, I'm assuming, Green coming back. And then we got 2 4-star quarterback freshmen. We got KJ Jackson. So I mean, there's a lot of areas where leaving could very well benefit him. All of them could, but I mean, you look at like Kudus and Braun, if he ends up, because he got in, he got out. Word is he's going to get back in, but you start looking at some of those guys, and you're like, gosh, like they could be the pieces that take that over. And the other side of this that like is just like me like thinking just as a fan, as a person on with that hat on, is maybe some of these guys were told to leave because maybe there's some people that are coming in that we don't know about yet. I don't know. I don't see that being the case for a lot of them, but
Well, so I want to say a couple things on that. So, I mean, to your last point, if we're trying to tell people to go, these guys are not where I would start. Kudus, I feel, I mean, he's a starter. He's quality level. I think he would start for us if he's healthy. That's the only thing that worries me about him. In this day and age where if guys play good, they want a raise, or if they don't get a raise, they'll just go to the next school that will pay them to do it. Uh, you know, that's how it'd be so tough to be a coach right now. Because if you say something they don't like, they'll just have somebody that says something they do like and they'll go play for them. And that's so tough. But I mean, with him, he had a season injury. He had a season-ending injury last year. It took him out like the last 4 games. He played in only 4 games this year, which probably could have came back a little sooner, but they were trying to preserve his red shirt. I mean, Sam talked about that. But I mean, if you're counting on him being your starter and he's only played in half your games the last 2 years, I mean, it could be replaceable. Um, Satanga, he looked better this year than he did last year, but I mean, there's a lot of receivers in the portal. I mean, I don't think he's not an Armstrong type loss. I mean, we could get somebody that could come in and put his numbers up. Do I want to lose him? No. But like he's replaceable. But all these guys, I don't like losing them, but if they're going to ask guys to walk, I would look more so at like a Blackstock. Like that feels like a guy to where it's like, okay, like thank you for your service. We're going to try and you may need to try and find somewhere else that you need to play, and those still may be on the way. I mean, I don't think it's going to be too crazy of a deal to have another. I mean, we're probably already we're definitely into the double digits on portal entries. I could see it being another 10, but hopefully these are the last guys that are just like, real, that they hurt a lot. I mean, you're going to lose some guys that were, lower level freshmen that redshirted and think they can go play for whoever, and not major losses, but hopefully this is the last of the starter type level losses.
yeah, we see a lot of guys here that were they could go play for other SEC schools. Like not all of them, probably, but a lot of the guys that are here could go start for another SEC team. So like that's what, to your point, I mean that's not guys that you want to leave unless they're a problem like off the field. There's always that aspect that it's like, okay, well, are you walking around lowering the morale, or are you building up the team like you should? Like pick up your head. Let's get after it. We're in another close game. We got to get going. We don't need the guy that's walking around, just pissing and moaning on the sideline. We need the guy that's leading. So there's and I think a lot of these guys were those guys. I mean, like the leading type. Like I look at Kudus and Braun. They were two of my leaders on the line preseason, and I think they were all the way through. Kudus was just hurt. And I mean, as a lineman with a back injury, that's tough. Like you can't come back. Back injuries suck for everybody, but you can't come back from that as a lineman. I mean, you're in the trenches. You gotta have your back. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything going. But I mean, we had the high school early signing day, high school, junior college stuff happening. There were some interesting pieces in that I didn't see coming. I didn't see the flip of Nico's little brother Madden and his receiver buddy. Like that's pretty huge. What do you have for the signing day aspect of off season?
Yeah. Yeah, so um, I'll put it this. I think we got some good pieces out of there, but I'm not trying to be a sunshine pumper when I say that because I'll say off camera and everything. We've talked about this, but I mean I've also brought it up. I thought this was the year to let Sam go, and it's not that I don't like him. It's more so just because recruiting is so hard for that guy right now. Um, just because not only are other coaches using it against him, but even just the fan base, even if it's not all of them, it's enough to where the loudest of the fan base are usually the ones that are the most unhappy. So I feel like that's what a lot of people see and hear on social media and other places. And while it's one person is not significant to where it becomes a lot of people, it starts to become chatter to not just the players, but the coaches themselves and then the recruits. It just all kind of snowballs. And I don't get fans for being upset, but it makes it really tough when they're recruiting. And I think some of the guys that are leaving, and then like especially the high school class it affected. Um, Ratings wise, it was one of the lower ones we've had. Now, like I said, I think there's some good pieces there, and I think that they flipped a couple guys, so there's obviously a few things going right there. But the portal is where they're going to have to get to it. But yeah, I mean, as far as the guys that I liked in the signing class, there's Madden that we talked about, another one of those names that I would just embarrass myself, but I will have to learn how to say it. Um, he's a big flip. Just to focus on him for a second, and for everybody that may not know, he's from California, so he was going to play at Long Beach. He was a top 100 recruit last year. He was a junior, had a really good year. He was like the number 3 dual threat quarterback, real high rated guy. So he wasn't quite as highly rated as his 5-star brother, but he's a top 100 quarterback out of the state of California. There is something to be said. Now, he ended up being ranked in top 300 with most services, but he had an issue to where he played the first game of the year for one school and then he tried transferring schools and they deemed him ineligible. So you don't play football, your rankings are going to fall. So he ended up hovering somewhere in like the mid 200s and kind of falling. And I think it's going to end up working out for us because it's a top 100 type talent guy. And then honestly, I think he'll come in and use next year as a red shirt because we're just assuming Talon is the guy. Um, but if he hadn't played football in a year, he needs to get out there and use that year to develop. So I think that works out really good for him. And then he'll have his buddy coming with him, Chase Brown. So he's kind of a hybrid mixture tight end receiver. He played tight end on theirs, but he's not nearly big enough yet in order to play tight end for us because he's like 6'4", 200 pounds. So I mean, he's got the height, but 200 pounds ain't going to cut it as a tight end in the SEC. Um, we had one other flip as well. It's Jacaden Ferguson. He was a 4-star on some sites, high 3-star on others. So you got a good couple of receiver flips on that day. And then our big signee for the entire class is Tavian Wallace. He was our undisputed consensus 4-star highest guy. There was worry about him possibly flipping to Florida State or Florida, but he ended up sticking with his commitment. And then we kind of, rounded out the class. I wanted to throw a few other names. So we got Scott Starzik. That'll be our new recruiter. That'll be our new kicker. Really good kicker. He's top 5 kicker consensus, number 1 on one side. He's got videos of himself hitting field goals from 50 plus yards. Personally, I'm pumped about that one. This dude should come in and start day 1. So hopefully he's our new kicker. Yeah, I mean, we saw how big of a deal. I mean, Shipley ended up. I don't know why he didn't begin the year, and Kyle Ramsey kicked for the first half. But Shipley ended up being okay towards the end of the year. But man, it's important having a good kicker, and I think they did get one. Got a couple of linemen, Blake Cherry and Lionel Prudhomme. Those are two interior guys that are not super high rated, but a lot of people and especially the coaching staff think they're really good. We got a long, lanky cornerback, Nigel Pringle. They got a lot of confidence in that guy. We got a Warren wide receiver. Those always seem to work out for us. So Antonio Jordan, he didn't get a lot of ranking, but that always had, Traylon Burks was pretty high rated, but I mean, that was a top 100 talent type dude too. He just didn't do all the camps and he didn't play at a really high, classification in Arkansas. So he just didn't get the ranking to follow it. So he could be a guy that can step in and do good too. And then we signed a bunch of guys on the defensive line. So one that stood out to me was Kevin Oates. He's kind of like Kavion Henderson last year. He's been our recruiter for this class, and he's a real vocal guy and likes to hang out on social media a lot and kind of talk it up. So, but he's got the play to back it up too. He played well. So that's just kind of a quick overview on the signing class. And like I said, there's some good pieces in there, but the way things are now, it's super tough to count on your recruiting classes, and especially this coaching staff. They are going to have to pour their hearts and souls into this recruiting class or this portal class, and they're going to have to work some magic because we've already lost some guys, and they needed to. We could have kept everybody, and we still needed a good portal class.
Yeah, that's 100% agree. The only thing I want to add is that you left off my favorite JUCO recruit in Bubba Craig, big boy, big Bubba. That's going to be my guy this year. Next year I can feel it. He's going to be my guy. I'm pulling for Bubba. That's I love that. I love that name, and I love his size. I love everything about it. Hopefully he can translate and get on the field, and really be that guy. But he's the number 2 position guy, so I mean that's pretty awesome. On one side anyway, but yeah, I mean I think we got in a lot of information here. There's going to be, like you said earlier, it's going to be changing daily. So next time we see you, we'll be able to get another lot of information, I'm sure. And I think along with that, we're gonna start doing a little basketball talk too. Be on a separate video completely because I don't want to cross over football and basketball. I want to keep it all together. With that, we got the basketball team going too, but I think the future's not quite as bright as I was hoping it would be right now going into the off season. I mean, I was hoping we'd beat Missouri, we'd have a high note there, we'd keep 90% of our guys. I was worried about Haas leaving pretty early because he wasn't getting much play, but he was also hurt for a lot of the year. And just because these guys are in the portal doesn't necessarily mean they won't be back.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Just because they say they're going into portal doesn't mean that they can't come back. I mean, there's guys that do it, and I mean, even today, I mean, the story goes that Braun entered the portal, he left, and he was leaving, and then all of a sudden they said he's coming back, and now he's gone again. So I think that was just a mistake. I think he was entering the whole time, but I mean, like you said, 100% guys could come back, but some guys have already said they're coming back as well, and they are foundational pieces. They are good ones to have. So as of right now, we've got 3 guys that have for sure said they're coming back. They've announced it, and they're in good shape. They're gonna roll. So it's Xavier and Sorey. I know that Brad Spence had a really good year, but I still think he's our best linebacker. And just touch on this because I wanted to throw it out there. Our linebackers they're strong. They're getting really good. I hope I touched on Carson Dean earlier, but hopefully we can keep that group together because I mean, there's dudes in that room. I mean, you get Sorey, you get Spence, and then last year our highest recruit was Bradley Shaw, and then this year you got Tavian Wallace. Um, I mean, you get a couple of young guys that these older guys can groom, and I mean that's just shout out to Travis Williams. I mean, that's your best recruiter on your team is putting in work, and I mean that room is stout. I mean, I know I'm saying I mean a lot, but I mean, you know, there's NFL guys on on that roster. I mean, each one of those guys studs, and so that if you want to look at a bright spot next year, and we haven't even hit the portal yet, if that linebacker group stays together, it's funny how at the beginning of the year, linebacker was the spot I worried about probably more than any spot. I think they were the steadiest group all year. And that was when you were kind of questioning them. Now you look at bringing that continuity back. You keep your guys that started most of this year, and you've got some young guys up, behind them ready to take their place. And I mean, they'll rotate in. That's exciting. So I just want to hit on that real quick. But Cam Ball, he's coming back. So another good foundational piece. He'll be your starting defensive tackle next year. Solid. Uh, really glad to have him back. And Fernando Carmona, that's your starting left tackle next year. We lost a couple guys on the offensive line. He's one you wanted to keep, for sure. So hopefully we hear something from Nichols soon. I would like both of those guys to come back. So Carmona at the left tackle and whether you keep Nichols at center, if you put him at guard, I think those two guys are definitely solid enough to where you want them to stay, especially if you've already lost two guys. So I definitely want both of those back. And while they haven't officially announced it, their dad posted something, and it seemed to be trending in the right direction. But the Metcalf brothers, looks like they'll probably both be back. That's two guys you want too because they were solid players in the secondary. So hopefully they'll be back as well.
That's two that I've been kind of watching that I'm like, please. Like both their mom and dad have both kind of said things that it's like, okay, well maybe they're staying and maybe we're good. That's but those Metcalf boys, I wish we could have a whole team of them. They're studs and I love it. That's hopefully they can come in and lock it up. But like you said, I mean that defense is gonna be pretty stout. There's some holes to fill for sure. But I think it's going to be stout. That's there was the young DB Bridges. He was a freshman this last year. I think he could step in and do pretty good. He's fast, so I don't see him being one of those guys that would give up too much over the top once he is good and familiar with the plays and all that. I mean, freshman could do anything, but sophomore could take a big leap. So I'm excited about the defense. Offense, we'll see. I mean, we still have some good running backs. We still have a good quarterback. If we have a line that can protect, we'll see. I don't mind suiting up if I have to, but that is what it is. But we'll see. I mean, there is some bright spots for sure. There is a lot of work to do for sure. And if they want to stay for another year after next year, there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some bright spots, and we still got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. There's some guys entering the portal, but Monday is when guys can officially enter. There'll be some visits coming up. There's some guys already scheduled to visit, but we'd have to, double the length of this show if we started getting into portal needs, who's coming, who's visiting, what are we going to do. So that's what we're saving for next week when the portal officially gets open and we can kind of start diving into, okay, looks like most of these guys are gone. Now who's coming? Who can we officially say are staying? We'll start building out a team and we'll start figuring it out from there. So hopefully we'll get that video out to y'all pretty early next week. But, until then, subscribe, like the video, comment. We appreciate y'all watching us and we appreciate the support. And if you don't like something, if you do, let us know. If you want us to cover something, let us know. But appreciate y'all guys hopping on.
Yes, sir. Y'all stay blessed. We'll see you next time. Tell somebody you love them. Hit those X follows too. Follow us everywhere. Don't be shy. We'll see y'all next week.